This is Wichita's Old Town, full of shops, restaurants, and entertainment venues. People come from all over to visit Old Town, which brings a large boost to our economy. The area wasn't always this vibrant. Old Town used to be the site of many vacant warehouses and empty streets. This is also the site of the Gilbert and Mosley groundwater contamination project. This project represents one of the true community success stories in Kansas and the nation. It took the cooperation of local, state, and federally elected officials, public officials, property owners, area businesses, banks, realtors, and investors to all come together to solve a variety of issues. More importantly, leaders, lenders, and property owners had to trust one another that property values would be restored and not later decline. This is the story about one of the most important and defining moments in the history of the city of Wichita. In the 1980s, many businesses had moved out of the area or closed, leaving 50% of the buildings vacant and boarded. Crime was up, few restaurants remained, and cultural and entertainment venues were non-existent. The life and excitement of Wichita's core area had drained away, and the situation was affecting the city's ability to advance economic development initiatives. City leaders decided the problem had to be addressed and embarked on a bold, large-scale redevelopment plan that would start with the renovation of Old Town. In 1988, a private-public partnership was formed to take the project on. Initial implementation of the Old Town project leveraged public investments to trigger private redevelopment efforts. The city provided financial incentives, including tax increment financing for attracting private investment, historic tax credits, as well as living amenities such as low-cost rentals, free parking opportunities, were also offered. The city knew that successful revitalization of Old Town was contingent upon the successful rehabilitation of existing buildings to maintain the historical character of the area, introduction of mixed land uses, and activity that would move beyond the typical workday. In 1990, the first phase of Old Town's redevelopment plan, including initial infrastructure renovations, began, but bad news was delivered. The Kansas Department of Health and Environment, or KDHE, announced there was widespread groundwater contamination in an aquifer directly under the downtown area. Tests proved the groundwater was contaminated with varying concentrations of chlorinated hydrocarbons, which were generally used as industrial solvents or dry cleaning fluids, as well as petroleum products which are found in gasoline. The site, dubbed Gilbert and Mosley after the intersection where the first discovered area of contamination, was immense, encompassing 2,600 acres in a 4-mile-long, 1-mile-wide area. The news was devastating, and after the National EPA listing site investigation report was made public, all private downtown commercial real estate activity within the Gilbert and Mosley site boundaries came to a complete halt. Old Town redevelopment plans appeared doomed by the prospect of a Superfund listing. While public improvements could be started, private contributions had to be put on hold. $86 million worth of commercial and residential properties were affected, comprising more than 8,000 individual parcels of land. Financial institutions, wary of Superfund liability, discontinued loans in the affected area, and one of Wichita's most important tax bases began to erode. After a funeral home in the area burned and was refused a loan to rebuild, the city knew it must act quickly. It needed to do whatever was necessary to prevent the looming specter of Superfund from ruining the city's redevelopment of Old Town. City leaders developed a three-prong approach to save their efforts in Old Town. First, to remove the stigma of Superfund by taking responsibility to find the sources of pollution and addressing the down-gradient flow of the pollution. Second, to assure investors and innocent parties wouldn't be held financially responsible for pollution cleanup costs they did not cause. And third, to find funding for the project. To stop Old Town from becoming a Superfund site, an agreement had to be reached between the EPA, KDHE, and the city of Wichita. A settlement agreement was drafted among the three agencies that outlined the responsibility of each entity. By allowing the city to become responsible for the investigation and feasibility studies for the site was no longer at risk of becoming a part of the Superfund program. The Gilbert and Mosley project was funded through a Tax Increment Finance District, or TIF. The TIF funds were collected from 1991 through 2021. The funding must last throughout the life of the project and is predicted to be substantially complete by 2035. This source of funding not only took the cooperation and agreement between the city, Sedgwick County, and USD 259, but it also entailed changing the state law. A TIF district had never been applied to an environmental project before. During the legislative session, statutes were amended to allow the city to create an environmental TIF district for the site. Property values were restored to prior contamination discovery levels, and the 1991 difference was allocated to the investigation and remediation of the Gilbert and Mosley site. The funds guaranteed the financial ability to clean up the site and provide funding for the portion of the costs that could not be recovered from responsible parties. With the Gilbert and Mosley project came the stigma of a city with environmental problems. The impact on economic development could have been devastating. An area marked for revitalization was now in the grip of indefinite stagnation, with no one willing or able to buy, sell, or improve properties. The same could be said of downtown itself, the financial and business hub of the community. To meet this challenge, the Certificate and Release, or CAR program, was developed, one of the first of its kind in the nation. This voluntary program asked property owners, occupants, or lenders to disclose the history and the current use of the property. If the applicant was not liable of causing pollution, a CAR could be issued, allowing the continued flow of commerce and sale of properties. The resolution of the environmental liability concerns by the city maintained the property values and promoted economic redevelopment, thus generating additional tax revenues, more jobs, increased tourism, and other associated benefits. The CAR program has relieved hundreds of innocent property owners from the financial liability that ultimately belongs to only a few polluters. It also allows contaminated properties to be refinanced or sold without passing the financial or cleanup responsibility to the next owner or lender. After 30 years of project implementation, Old Town continues to grow into a popular tourist destination and entertainment district, workplace, and residence for hundreds of people. Intrust Bank Arena and Cargill's headquarters were constructed in the area and has had a strong positive impact on the recovery of downtown Wichita. WSU Tech has also expanded its campus to include Old Town. Public health interests and confidence have been reinstated, and a valuable natural resource is being restored for future use. The infrastructure designed to remediate the contamination consists of 13 extraction wells to remove the contaminated water and 5.5 miles of piping that carry contaminated groundwater to the water center at Herman Hill Park. The water center has the capacity to treat nearly 1.7 million gallons of contaminated water per day. Remediation efforts through 2023 have reduced the area of groundwater contamination by approximately 85%. Also, 5 of the 13 groundwater extraction wells have completed their job and are no longer needed. The remaining 8 wells pump approximately 1 million gallons a day for treatment. After treatment, the water passes through an architectural plaza filled with fountains. The water is then pumped to an 11,000-gallon outdoor aquarium that showcases native fish and expresses the life-supporting qualities of clean water. It then flows 800 feet through an artificial creek which was constructed using a liner to minimize water loss into the park's sandy soils heading to the Arkansas River. There was a strong possibility the area would have economically collapsed if it had been declared a Superfund site. Other examples of Superfund sites have shown that land becomes severely devalued. Through the city's initiative, property values in the Gilbert and Mosley site were spared and have subsequently recovered and increased above their initial values when the contamination was discovered. Through investigation of the Gilbert and Mosley site, it was found that the groundwater under the area is part of the Arkansas River alluvium. It moves in the same direction as the river and toward the open channels of the river. If the groundwater pollution from the industrial areas of the city had gone unchecked, it eventually would have flowed to the open channel of the river. The flow of the pollution had to be stopped to save a natural resource, the Arkansas River, as it flows through the heart of the city.